Do you need the?
No.
Do you want the hand mic? If I don't know. I don't know how big audience is going to be this morning.
Yeah.
So.
Put the hand mic first.
Yeah.
And then we can.
Bring
the hand mic up. All right, straight there.
So are you on one, Matthew?
I'm on one.
And who's on two?
Kevin, what?
Destroyed me with it.
We have 5 minutes here.
Hvem samarbejder du med i forhold til byggeaffald?
Indtil videre, så har jeg arbejdet på, at jeg rent faktisk havde noget at fortælle og vise.
Om hvad?
At jeg rent faktisk havde noget at fortælle og vise.
Ja.
Produkter og så videre. Jeg forstår mig på produktion og ting og sager. Jeg har gjort mig nogle tanker om det hele.
Ja.
Og nu her er så noget dertil, hvor jeg har lige haft nogle forpligtelser, jeg skulle overstå. En lejlighed, jeg skulle have gjort færdig, den bliver solgt nu her.
Ja.
Sparegris. Så jeg har penge til i hvert fald at komme i gang med det selv.
Ja.
Og nu er det sådan ved at være oppe over, at det bliver det alt. Hvor alt det er sådan, jeg har fundet alle trådene, hvis man kan sige det sådan.
Ja.
Så nu kan jeg komme i gang med at binde dem sammen.
Ja.
Jeg har lige været over mødes med Ravn Arkitektur her. Torsdag var det.
Ja.
Og det bliver sådan lidt med at finde ud af med denne pilotprojekter og sådan noget. For det jeg laver, fliser og sådan noget, man skal se det. Du skal have et pilotprojekt, hvor man kan se det.
Ja.
Det er sgu ikke flot. Ikke kun når det ligger på bordet, men også når det bliver sat. Og de har så også på de projekter, de arbejder på, har de også bær sådan noget. Hun fortalte det badeværelse, de har lavet, hvor pladerne i marmor var begyndt at løsne sig og falde ned, så der kommer en hel masse af dem. På 6 badeværelser, så siger jeg, det var rækkehus. Nej, det var en hus. Samme de lavede 4.000 kvadratmeter på portugisisk sandsten i et eller andet. De kørte det væk på paller affald. Og så videre. Sådan er det hver gang, du har det her projekt. Og der er jo typisk, altså, med tommelfingre i nærmest, du har 10% afskab og fliser. Det kan være lidt mindre, når du har større arealer, men lad os sige 5%. I en lille siden leverede 1.500 kvadratmeter. Det er så dyrt lavesten til trackmans rådene til, tror jeg. Jeg har ikke fået tal på det, men stadigvæk, hvis det er 5%, så har man 70 kvadratmeter. Og lavesten, som koster 3.000. Men det går ud, fordi det er i nogle stykker. Der er ikke nogen, der har. Altså, alle kan finde ud af at gøre det. Jeg har stået og skåret det på en almindelig bundskære, som jeg altid har haft. Men at gøre det effektivt nok til, det kan blive sammen.
Ja.
Det kan man ikke.
Nej.
Det er selvfølgelig også i en senere fase skal op. Altså, det var det, du skal kunne. Hvordan kan du det er mindre manuelt, kan man sige, på et eller andet tidspunkt?
Hvis du skal producere i Danmark og gøre det her, så skal du automatisere det, effektivisere det. Og det der efterhånden, som jeg ser...
Du skal ned i byggemarkerne.
Nej.
Det er der er penge, og det er der er marked.
jeg har mødtes med Stark, Thomas Banger og så videre, og jeg er kommet frem til, at salget, det skal jeg selv stå for. Fordi der skal jeg også have kontrol over det. Meget af det, jeg får ind, jamen det er en 1000 til 10 kvadratmeter. Jeg kan jo ikke sætte de 10 kvadratmeter hver gang, når vi 10 kvadratmeter.
Nej.
Og i Stark, jamen det her, det bliver ikke billigt.
Nej.
Hvad hedder det? Så dem, der går i Stark, de leder ikke efter en butik.
Nej.
Dem, der gør det, de finder selv butikker. Så som jeg ligesom ser på det og kommer frem til, så giver det ikke mening for mig at være i det her.
Skulle det være havnens hæld?
Men stadigvæk, altså hvis nogen sidder til et projekt, og gerne vil have nogle lidt store fiser, så søger de på nettet, og så finder de en Marok, Focus Plus, de forskellige, og så skal du bare sørge for, at du ligesom også er cirka det. Og så kigger de, og så bliver du den første tanke med byggemarkedet. Det er bare sådan noget plastik. Men i det kan du lave dokumentation, som kan se strategisk på land, og ikke behøver at køre for langt. Så vil du lave et Aarhus-område, trekantsområde, så kan du godt komme til. Og så skal du betale huslejen for et lokale i et industrikvarter, 20-30 minutter. Så kan du selv bygge det op, så det hele kommer til sin ret. Så måske selve lokalet egentlig også er en oplevelse at komme ind i. I stedet for at placere på en byflæs blandt 500-600 andre fyre.
Jamen det er fordi...
Okay, can you test? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm unmuted. Is yours unmuted?
I don't know if it's lit. Look.
Good morning and welcome to the first of 4 podcasts today live here in Copenhagen in the rain. It's typical spring weather. My name is Matthew Jackson. I am the host today, a co-founder of Zero Construct. And today, the first session, we're going to talk about bio-based materials and circularity. And we have a fantastic panel for you. Introducing first Thomas Kviborg. He is an angel investor, board member of over 4 companies, also interim CEO of bio-based Willow company called Move. His expertise crosses architecture, bio-based building materials and urban development. In the middle, we have Oliver Hansson. He is founder of a startup, Sickly, aiming to produce tiles in Denmark from reused and repurposed materials such as concrete, brick, stone and ceramics. Prior to this, 16 years of experience in construction, practically mainly in masonry and tiling. And furthest away from me is Nikolai Kulsten-Friis, architect at Yaya Architecture, who is a dedicated programmatic reuse geek. Is that correct? That's how I've written it down for you. Working primarily as a project manager with focus on recycling strategies and circular building processes. So welcome this morning. Thank you for giving up your Saturday morning and sitting with us with a huge crowd. It's so early. Everyone is hacking. This is the thing. Everyone's kind of getting on. So, but let's kick off. I think at top level and framing it quite nicely. Construction uses a huge amount of material. It's one of the most using industries in the world when it comes to volumes of material, and a lot of it is raw. A lot of it is fresh. A lot of it is new, mined out of the ground, and very, very harmful. So I'd like to start, let's start with the gentleman closest to me. Just kind of tell me, for you, in your work, circularity, bio-based materials, what does it mean to you and what are you trying to solve in your problems and in your work around the subject?
Well, I think my interest for this was really trying to help decarbonize the industry. So really trying, you can say, with the perspective of keeping within the planetary boundaries, how can we do that in terms of the material we used, also improve biodiversity. But I would also say the more I really come into this, I also seen from the, you can say, the sector's perspective, I think what we are trying to solve is really also to future-proof the industry with the scarcity, we start to see really on a lot of, you can say, the raw materials for the more conventional products, mineral, fossil-based products. So I think that is, to me, more and more what we're trying to solve, to make sure that we also have the materials that allow us to continue to transform and build in 5, 10, 20 years ahead.
Fantastic.
Circularity is sort of, in a literal sense, a matter of keeping the materials that you've put into the loop, in the loop. And I will be producing tiles from waste materials, which will be concrete, bricks, natural stone, ceramics, production, process, and demolition waste, and thus put it back into the buildings. That is sort of a small part. Volume-wise, it's not going to make much of a difference. But as we talked about, this is what people see. Tiles are an aesthetic choice, and if people can see and feel that reused and repurposed materials are worth considering, it might, make the idea of circularity in all take root in their mind, and thus make a bit of a change beyond just the product I have and the contribution the product itself has.
So more small scale, I like it, very good. And finally, Nikolai.
Yeah, so obviously for the last 60, 70 years we've been building unhealthy, both in terms of looking at the planet, but also maybe in some terms of what materials we use and what chemicals we use and so forth. So I'm interested in how we can balance it out and how we can start building in a clever and more healthy way again. So obviously we need to stop depleting our planet's resources, and we need to start building less, and we need to start reusing more. So our building practice needs to change, and I'm super interested in how we can do that in a clever and sustainable way.
So I think we're talking about materials, and one of the big thing about materials is choices and people. Either having the appetite to make decisions on maybe a new material, or even understanding that there is an alternative to your standard bricks or concrete. So I want to start with talking more about the people aspect and choice, and that is sort of like who in kind of an innovation of new materials. If we have a new phase of materials coming along, there's lots of startups. We don't see a lot of new materials in a more of a scale-up or kind of mass-produced way. So who do you think should be the driver? Who should be innovating this? Who do you think should be making more informed choices around this subject? And any of you can jump in to start.
Well, I've had a small construction company for 13 years. So I've built for regular people, and my experience is that they don't really have any thoughts on circularity and reused materials and so on, because their picture of it is pallet sofas and such. And so I've never had a client ask me about circular solutions or sustainable solutions or so, because the picture of it, the awareness they have of it, is that it's not really something they would want, or that adds value to
is it still seen
their
as
project.
more kind of like the trendy kind of urban bar you go to, and it has some old leather sofas and some pallets, and maybe there's a wall made of, I don't know, old glass.
Yeah, they
think it more as
they've seen projects that are really cool, made out of bamboo and such, but for their own home, no, they don't really consider it. And that's sort of what I'm trying to do with what I'm setting afloat here, is to make something that people will want to choose, that looks good. And that's hard to do with insulation and concrete and so on, so that's a different game. But yeah, I think people need to be more aware of it, and they need to be incentivized on it by, being offered things that add value somehow to their home, to their project.
So, if we're talking about, small scale, I think is a good place to start, because the individual person on the kind of your geekified architecture kind of process, are you bringing this into your work, or how are you finding it from an innovation perspective and people?
Well, I'm more thinking about the larger scale, I would say, in construction, and I think there's many points where you can do a touchdown, but I think if you look at the building regulations, they are designed in a way to comply with unsustainable materials, and namely concrete is heavily favored in many ways, and so I think we can do tweaks here and there, and then we can actually change the whole construction business step by step. So what I'm interested in is how can we make new materials a secondary option. We should make reused materials the first option if we have them available. So we need to design our whole building industry so that the reused materials is the natural choice. That's a very complicated process. Many things that needs to be done, but I think there's a lot of good thinking going on right now, and I think there's a push for it. And I'll let you talk, Thomas, but I think we need to look at these tipping points. Like how can we make these tweaks where things which were the norm before doesn't become the norm anymore. Just a small example, like if you have the acoustic demands of concrete is heavily favoring concrete. If we tweak the acoustic demands, then suddenly we can use more wood. And so I know that people are looking at the building code right now to tweak the acoustics. And if we do this tipping point, then suddenly a new world opens. And I think there's a lot of these small tweaks we can do. So it's one small step at a time, I think.
No, I very much agree also that I think that would be a very important driver, trying to change the building code, the EPDs, the certification, so it's much more accommodating towards the properties and qualities of the bio-based and circular materials. I think that would definitely help. What I've seen sort of the last few years, I think a main driving force has really been very much the architects. I mean, I think there's a lot of curiosity and interest among the architects really to change the industry and how we build and so on. And that, you can say, have some potential for impact, but also is up against a very, you can say, conservative, risk-averse industry. And it's also have some limitations in terms of how do you really then develop new solutions and materials. So I think also going forward, we need to treat this as a much more cross-disciplinary approach. We need also to combine architects also with people with a natural science, technical science background. I think people working with biosolutions in other spaces needs to come into this space as well. And then I think we also need across the value chain also to involve much more of the carpenters, the contractors, etc., and bring their knowledge into play, because they are also the ones who can be, you can say, a barrier to the uptake if they don't feel comfortable and can see that this works in sort of the early stages.
Well, I would say, in terms of architects, now you work on bigger projects. In smaller projects, regular people's homes, the carpenter, the mason is the architect that helps them choose materials and so on, solutions. So yeah, I've been sort of an architect in some ways, just on a small scale. But yeah, get a hold of the craftsmen as well, because they're the architects sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But we need to find craftsmen who are willing to do it, and we are getting more and more. That's the good thing. I think in many parts of the building industry, there are more and more people who are turning towards that approach. And I mean, from my side, these has been rare early on in my career, and now it's super easy to find them. And we also need to design our tenders and all the things that we design the whole processes. We need to accommodate people who want to do circularity.
Very good. So, I mean, you've brought up a few interesting pain points along there. We've talked about regulatory, talked about education, knowledge, people on the ground. I think we'll start with incentives rather than regulatory, because regulatory is kind of a very negative. We talk about regulatory all the time. I think if you flip it around and talk about incentives, I think incentives is quite interesting, because we're not going to talk about a stick. We're going to talk about a carrot. So if we were to think about incentives for people to move to a more bio-based or circularity material reuse, recycling, what sort of incentives do you think we can be placed within the building industry that would make people make those decisions more?
I think sometimes I do see a lot of similarities between this industry and then the energy and the renewable energy industry also in its infancy. So I think it was also fully accepted that there is a need for really support, subsidies, kind of, you can say, tax schemes which can really give the incentives at an early stage where you don't have the volume to be, you can say, competitive price-wise to get an uptake. So I think we also need to look at this within this industry into some kind of schemes, whether it's some kind of tax reduction, whether it's some, you can say, public grants, you can say some debt financing, you can say on good terms, which can help actually create a spark off the industry, and then you can start to get the experience needed to get, you can say, over time uptake, because that is I think incentive-wise, it's also very much related, you can say, to risk. That so far now it's more the more expensive choice to go this way, and it's still with a much more risk. Also, it's more difficult to get your buildings insured, and you never know, I mean, what will happen in 5-10 years and so on. So we need to really unlock this risk. And there, I think if we can find some incentives to whether you are a building owner, developer, that you get some credits for really taking some risk in new materials, I think that could be something we should explore more.
I agree, and in a way I also disagree. I think we have a tendency, if we look at circularity, to look at it as one big chunk, and you have complicated things to reuse, and you have easy things to reuse. And what when I started my career, I was looking at the complicated things, and the older I get, I look more and more at the boring things to reuse, like the recessed ceilings and the ventilation ducts and the floors, all the stuff which are kind of easy. And I think what I'm looking at, how we can look at the merging markets for these easy materials and how we can get them into to the projects. So I think yes, I think it's both easy and hard in some ways.
I think as to incentivizing people, what I'm trying to work with is again aesthetics. And I'm lucky that the product I'm sort of trying to produce here that is something you can see, and if you make it pretty, people will have an incentive to buy it. So that's really a carrot, if you will. So where sometimes incentives the carrot has to be some sort of tax scheme or whatever, so that people are rewarded in ways for choosing this. Whereas if the tile is nice and it has some story because it's reused, well, that's the incentive for people. But that's not really the case with insulation, for example. So it depends on the material and where in the building it is, what incentives you can give people. And yeah, so it's different.
I mean, is there an incentive coming? So obviously, so Denmark, there's 2 countries in the world which are leading the way in sort of trying to tackle the carbon emissions and embodied carbons within buildings. It's Denmark and the Netherlands. They're by far the 2 countries that are the furthest ahead. And we talk about this a lot in Zero, and actually generally across a lot of my work, is this carbon target ruling that's coming, which is we have to use so many CO2 kilograms per square meter. I think it's now 7.8 in Denmark is the new updated rule when you're updating it every 2 years. Is that a little catalyst? It's not an incentive because it's regulatory, right? So it's a bit of a stick. But it is a little bit of a catalyst for people to think about, well, I can't just use my same old concrete. I can't use my same old insulation. I can't use my same old glass. Like, you have to look at it and you have to really think about your supply chain and the materials. And it affects small houses and it affects huge buildings. It's going to be across the board. And that's coming in slowly. Are you starting to see potentially that could be a way for people to really start thinking about the materiality of what we build, because you've got this so many kilograms per square meter of CO2?
I think it will over time. I think currently with, you can say, sort of the limits now you have, it's still fairly possible to, with conventional materials, to keep within. But it will change when you set sort of next targets, I'm sure. So it has, of course, sparked a huge interest and an understanding for the need to change. But then I think it's also very much collide with the building codes, bygningsreglementet. It collides also with especially our fire regulation, which is extremely, you can say, heavy in Denmark for new materials.
Well, they have that problem right now with the new Fire Safety Act in the UK after the Grenfell disaster, is that it actually collides with another part of the regulations. So you have to pick fire or sustainability now in the UK. So you have the same thing here.
I think we have the same here for sure, and that's also why you see relatively, you can say, few new Danish-based materials compared to what you see coming out of the Netherlands and Germany, because they have a home market which is more accommodating for getting new materials on the market than what is the case in Denmark. So I think that's something we need to be highly aware of in Denmark, that we also follow up. Yes, it's a good first start with the targets we have in our regulation, but all the other systems and processes has also to accommodate that target. And I know there is an understanding for it right now when we are looking at the revision of the building codes.
I also think there's both a CO2 base which is going hopefully lower and lower, and so this will promote CO2 low emission materials more and more. But there's also a cost of the materials and resources which is could be more fluctuating in these times. So you could say that namely the bio-based materials and the reused materials, in a kind of wishful scenario, they are more price stable, and they will, over the long term, they will probably be able to be more attractable than virgin or mined materials. There is a kind of constant supply of reused materials, whereas we now see a lot of problems with getting sand and gravel and so forth. It's already becoming a problem both nationally and globally. So I think we need to prepare for a time where these materials has to be taken much more serious than they are now, and I think people are slowly waking up.
I totally agree with this, because as I said initially, I was also going into this field because you can say that the planetary reasons, and thought they were the main drivers, and also the targets were the main drivers. But I really come to see that it is really much more about resource scarcity on the conventional, you can say, materials and raw materials that will drive it just in the medium term. And I think also these days we talk a lot of resilience. And we can now see that if this, you can say, crisis is going on for long, it will really spike the prices of conventional building materials. And to the extent that we can transform much more to locally sourced, locally produced, bio-based circular materials, I think we have a much more, you can say, stable price, and certainly even with, you can say, lower production volumes, they would be price competitive.
Yeah.
So I'm very optimistic due to that situation, basically.
I mean, I quite like if you think about the public discourse on what has happened to architecture over the past 30, 40 years. No, I'm a recovering architect, let's put it. I don't do architecture anymore. But you just think, like, you walk around any city, there is a ubiquity, commonality in how we build, in that a lot of it's steel, a lot of it's glass. A lot of modern housing has also kind of standardized itself in a way where you may not really know what part of the country you're in, or even what part of Europe or part of the world you're in, because housing or buildings becomes very the same. And we're losing picking up that local materiality, that local aesthetic, which comes from, using a more circular, bio-based. If you look at how we built even just 50 years ago, you could really tell where you are in the world by the facade, by the internal finishing. We all love IKEA. At the same time, IKEA has made everybody's homes look very Scandinavian and very kind of white. So the idea of this materiality, this circularity, is very interesting on this side, from a global kind of people reclaiming what I would call maybe some local identity on a small scale, like because I know very little about small Danish houses, to be very honest. With the materials that you're producing as well, are they stylistically, aesthetically Danish in a way, like they're identified that way, or are you just absorbing what material you can today to produce?
I wouldn't say it's stylistically Danish. It's the tiles that I'll offer people. They are what they are. Everything is, they are the material that I can source. None of it is crushed and recast, and I can't design it in that way. I can curate the materials I can find, and that's that. I cut that material, and I've had a lot of different things on the table, and I cut it open. Some of it does not look very nice. Okay, nobody will buy it. But no, I can't really design anything else than the shape of it, and then it's just the material as it is.
So out of interest then, because we're going to segue slightly quickly, how are you finding supply of the material? Is over the past few years, is the availability of material to use going up, going down? Like, how do you get standard day? How are you getting hold of this material to create something new?
From buildings. Building industry, it's production waste, it's process waste, it's demolition waste. So it'd be contractors, architects who have projects where they install thousands of square meters of tiles and they have cut-offs, for example. Tabletop companies, they have cut-offs. None of it can be used. Sometimes plates break, and once it breaks, the value per square meter is so low that with the existing production capacity, you can't cut it up for tiles efficiently enough to be sold. But yeah, it's everywhere you have materials that are waste. I have sort of a deal with IBF. They produce pavement tiles and concrete, and they have production waste that doesn't meet quality control. So I get those, the pavement tiles, and they have excess concrete. When a truck comes back, it often has excess concrete. I can cast that into blocks, color it, and so on. And so I have to reach out to sort of everybody. I need a network as big as possible to source these materials. And some of it is scarce. I can get 20 square meters of that natural stone, and that is it. So curation, network.
It almost
sourcing.
sounds like art in a way, because it's kind of
curation.
Really, you're curating based on what you have. which is a massive issue if you want to mass produce this stuff, because you basically...
I have a limit on volume, and it's different, depending on the material.
So that's kind of like reuse. I want to touch very quickly on bio-based on your side, Thomas, because you have this this organization that creates material from willow, which is a very thin tip.
Yeah, well, it's the bamboo of the you can say the European part, but it can actually it's grow very fast, you can say, and also give you can say a thickness like this within 5 to 6 years.
So what are you doing? So what's different? I mean, also explaining for the audience that are listening, the difference really between kind of a circularity recycled material versus what you guys are doing on a more start that sentence again, shall I? A more bio-based approach. How is it different, and what's the process of producing a bio-based material?
Well, of course, depending on the kind of bio-based material, for sure, if you are, you can say, the very hard construction wood, of course, this also takes many years, and there we also need to be very careful in terms of first looking towards circular solutions before also trying to bring these virgin materials into play. But then there are, you can say, crops which is either side stream from, you can say, agricultural production, or whether it's, you can say, crops, woods, which is extremely fast growing, like willow. And there you really also have the advantage, you can say, there is some biodiversity advantage on how you can fertilize and grow with a very minimum impact. But there you really also get the chance to, you can say, really bind a lot of carbon. So this full question of carbon sequestration is certainly also an issue. So basically you can actually store a lot of carbon here and now by trying to use much more bio-based materials like willow, for instance. So I think that's one of the huge advantage of starting to look towards a crop like willow, which is so fast growing, because there because I think that is one of the big issues, also talking about tipping points, that we very quickly can come to decarbonize and take carbon out. And that you can do by using that kind of material. So you actually have buildings as a way of storing carbon.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We had a pod, I think a couple of years ago now, where we were talking about carbon capture. And I think we all agreed that the whole carbon capture industry should just spend their money on trees. Spend your money on trees. That's what you should do. You don't need tech. Just do trees. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, what comes out, what products comes out of the willow, and how is it used in the construction industry?
I think there's a lot of opportunities, actually, also because the hardness, you can also use it for some kind of, you can say, more construction part. But so far we've sort of started using it for also some acoustic solutions. We are right now starting to test more, you can say, on boards, OSB boards, other boards, where you use also you can say the fracture into it. So instead of using that for bioenergy, biomass for energy, then you start to use them for boards. You can also use them in for you can say frames for doors. You can use them for some facade solutions where you use the entire, you can say, willow stock. So there's many ways that you can actually use willow.
Very cool. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about material supply chain. So, I mean, I've been going to construction material shows for years. And always in a very nice corner of these big conferences, you get these little stands, startups that are producing something bio-based, something which is from circularity. And one that always sticks to my mind, which I just want to kind of play out and kind of discuss, I think, more as kind of regulatory perspective, is that in Scandinavia, we put all our milk, yogurts, we drink a lot of yogurts for breakfast, which is a very Scandinavian thing, in these cardboard, plastic, wax, 1 liter boxes. We don't use plastic for milk, everybody in Scandinavia, right? Which are actually very not recyclable, right? Because we've kind of glued layers of stuff together. I think I've seen 3 different companies who are using that material. They're compressing it to make an alternative to gypsum. Yeah. Precisely, right?
Yeah.
But I've never seen any of these companies been able to really scale up. I've never seen it used on a building site in real life. Just go.
Well,
what's your thoughts on this?
I think some of these products, they are promising, but they are still in a startup mode. And I don't want to put any shade on Rekoma, but we tried to use them in an early phase, and we did some chemical testing on them, and they didn't fully comply with our demands. So, and the problem is, I don't want to throw any shade on them. Maybe they are solving these things. They are probably doing that. But I think a lot of these startup companies, they are startups with all due respect, and they are still, in many ways, we are learning. But when we as architects demand products for a large-scale commercial project, often they don't comply with the rules and the demands, and that's a problem for these companies. That's why we can't scale them up at the moment. But I think they need to learn, and then once they have learned and their prices go down, then we will embrace them.
So are they struggling because it's too hard? Are they struggling because it takes too long? Are they struggling because they lack capital? Like what's
all of the above?
All of the above.
Yeah. So I think they are competing against a system which is very well established, and which are very entangled in all the demands and so forth, and knows how to deal with them. They have large organizations helping them comply with the rules and demands. And so many of these startups, they with acoustics and like when you have upcycled products and so forth, they need to be super good at knowing where do they source the materials, what are these materials clean and so forth. I mean, all of these things, they are still learning, and we have to give them a chance, and we have to talk to them. But what I've learned is that I spend a lot of time, my hours, on trying to get an upcycled product in a project, and then at the end they fail because they cannot document themselves. And so I think they need to up their game, and they are upping their game, but I think that's some of the challenges we have now.
I mean, just ask ChatGPT, right? That surely is the solution to all problems. But no, I think it's a really good point.
In terms of that, what I'm doing here is it's not really hard to meet the requirements, because I'm just cutting up bricks, concrete, pavement tiles, natural stone. None of it has to comply with chemical rules about chemicals, fire, whatever. It already does, as it's already been in buildings, or it has been produced under controlled environments and so on. So I don't really have these issues. But you can't produce.
But you have to convince me that the tile that you have, or you take down, that it hasn't had an asbestos plaster. Blah,
testing,
blah, blah.
Of course.
You need, and I'm sure you can give me that. But a lot of these manufacturers, they can't give me that.
No.
And then I spend too much time talking to them, so they have to professionalize. And
I'm well aware of this and have given it much thought. I will have to be able to test it, and sometimes there's a difference in how risk-prone materials are.
Yes.
Bricks on a building, not very high unless there were PCB and the caulking, but they already test for this. And I have an issue with pavement tiles that have been on.
Not always.
Not always, but
I'm sorry to be such a party killer.
But I will of course have to have that in mind. Yeah. I know that. I'm well aware of it. But that's my only issue in regards to that, is that I have to test if it has harmful substances in it.
But my point is, there's no maybe or I'm sure they have. It has to be. I'm certain they have. I'm not saying that
I know.
But that's what I meet. A lot of people saying, they're argumenting. I don't care about arguments. I need documentation. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why in this, for me, production and process waste is a lot easier to document in that way. And to start with, for example, pavement tiles, cut up into small grey terrazzo tiles, I will have to start with process waste or production waste. Newly produced tiles that did not meet quality control, because they can give me papers on what's in it. Whereas if I take the pavement tiles from a parking lot, I will have a hard time proving it. And that's sort of, if I reach a point that I know I can test all of this continuously and prove that there is nothing in it, well, I will maybe be limited to production waste. So, yes, it is an issue, but...
I think my point is that I'm saying you as a kind of, let's call you an upcycler, you have to make my job easy, not hard. Because when if I present a product to my client, they have very good advisors, and they will test the shit out of it before I get it in the project. And then often I meet upcyclers that makes my job hard, and that gives me a risk because I don't have that many hours to use on a given product.
And this is because purely you need on more larger projects. It's everything has to pass because it has to pass insurance.
Also small projects, but namely larger professional projects where I want to embrace all of these new products, but every time I spend an hour on them, I spend one less hour on something else.
Yeah, of course.
And so I have to. It doesn't look good for me always when I work with these complicated materials.
Thomas, jump in here on the regulatory kind of part. How are you finding this with your advisory, the bio-based, the VC stuff? Are you finding that this is also a big uphill battle, or is it a bit easier on the bio-based side?
No, I think that is also an uphill battle. I think it's starting, you can say, also with the kind of test and documentation you need to go through. It's also very much related to what's in the building codes, how you can, what requirements that you will have to new materials. It's very expensive to get these tests, much more expensive than for the conventional products. There's also the point on, for instance, the EPDs, that I don't think they are, you can say, fully owing justice to also some of the properties you see in the bio-based materials. You can say most of them are produced with, you can say, much less energy intensive, and there you can say conventional products can also get, you can say, their carbon credits to get good EPDs and so on. So I think also from that point of view, I think there could be more support to gain on, you can say, the bio-based products. But I think so that's one part. But I think, and it's of course something which makes it, you can say, lengthy and expensive. But I think the major issue is really when it comes to the uptake and to convince also, you can say, investors, building owners to take a little more risk to test out some of these solutions once they have passed the test and documentation. And we are... because it takes too long as it is now to get the uptake so you can really start to mainstream. Yeah. Because then I think there's a good schemes now also in Denmark funded by Realdania and others in terms of 4-to-1 Planet, where you have a lot of start to have good knowledge and pilot products, but there is also still a big lap from that point on to really the big uptake to the big projects. And there I think we need some solutions which is industry-based and so also with the involvement of the insurance companies and others. How can we as an industry perhaps take a little more risk and take it or share the risk in this transformation?
I agree, because we're in a bit of a chicken and egg, like with everything situation, where there are good ideas out there. There are fantastic startups producing some fascinating materials, bio-based materials, circularity-based materials, and people going, well, I can't pick your material because you're going to take 6-9 months to get that volume to me, so I need you to scale up first. But they need the orders to scale up. We're in that situation of people need money to scale up, but at the same time, to make orders, you need to scale up. And going back to what I was saying before about the carbon stuff, I mean, the municipalities have to pass their own laws. I mean, municipalities are running their own projects. They're building schools, building hospitals, building roads. They have to. So I'm hoping that it's going to come from the public sector more so as a leader, because they kind of have to pass pass their own rules, and maybe the government will incentivize them. We have a very big audience, and I'm wondering if the audience member has a question for the panel before I ask the final question. Anything from you, Michael? If yes, I'm going to run the microphone to Michael. There we go.
So, fantastic conversation and very good input and perspectives. My question is, what can the project owners do right now? What can the owners do in their requirements that they put forward into their projects in order to, drive some of these changes? Taking the risk on board, but what should they do in their requirements, in their contracts?
Over to Nikolai first. But you put your hand up. You were keen.
Yeah. So just, I think one thing is crucial is to have an early dialogue with your client about what's their expectations. You have to make sure you are aligned. And then if you talk about circular materials, they can take some of the risk from the contractor. So, but that's a different topic maybe about the insurance and materials and the longevity of materials. But I think the client has to be open to accepting a bit higher risk with some of the materials, like in traditional terms, because you can ask yourself if let's say a metal sheet has been on a facade for 30, 40 years without any problems, why wouldn't it last 30, 40 years more? And so there's these things that we need to kind of readjust our way of thinking in terms of, let's say, longevity of materials. I don't know if that was an answer, but that was my point.
Anybody else want to add to?
No, perhaps also try to. So I understand this is a very much, you can say, short-term focused industry running project from project, but I think also a lot of, you can say, investors, contractors, asset owners also need to perhaps, given, you can say, the scarcity of conventional resources, start to perhaps see this in a more long-term perspective and perhaps enter into a little more strategic cooperation and partnerships with some of these startups and then find good ways to, within their portfolio of projects, starting to test out where it makes sense and where you can also manage the risk better instead of just looking at project by project. Mm-hmm. So I think that's also in the interest of, those who are preparing for the long term, so they can actually prepare themselves for also having the availability of materials just 5-10 years down the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anything from Oliver on that?
I don't know. So we talked about stick and carrot before. I think maybe stick is needed first in order to force them to take a little bit of a risk. And the capital that comes from there can maybe address some of the problems with documentation, development of products, scaling, trying to address the price point issue as well. But that may require some stick initially, order to be able to feed them the carrot later.
To quote Ola, who's your next host, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a stick, it's a baseball bat. That's what's being hit. In final comment, just kind of my little final kind of round, and we'll start with Nikolai and work our way forward. If there is, you could click your fingers, if there is one thing that you think the industry should absolutely 100% categorically change over the next 5 years, regardless of money or complexity or whatever, what would you really want to see change? It could be this, it could be something else. It doesn't.
Only one thing, demolition stop.
Demolition stop.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I have a story, but it's too long.
It's about maintaining our resources.
Yeah.
That's also in the demolition stop philosophy. So it's a very broad thing, but I think this idea of seeing our materials as a pool of resources, I think we should start doing that.
There was very, very, very quickly before I come to this, there was a building that was one of the first awarded, it was quite a long time ago now, kind of, by a long time, 5 years ago, it was awarded zero carbon building. And then I asked the panel, but there was a building there before. Silence.
Yeah.
Because there was all that carbon kind of disappeared and went somewhere. Thomas.
No, I think for me it's also a mindset issue. So I would very much like there's more, you can say, curiosity and also a little more risk appetite to try to test out new ways of doing things, new materials. because there's also huge risk in not testing this out, because then you really face the scarcity in not a too distant future. So I think the industry in itself has to, mindset-wise, be able to think differently.
Thank you very much. That is 45 minutes. It goes super quickly. So thank you all for joining us on your Saturday morning. And for those of you who are hacking, good luck. We will see your presentations tomorrow. And if you've watched the live stream, thank you for joining us. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Woo.
Yes, welcome everybody to our little panel discussion, to our podcast here, a rainy Saturday morning in Copenhagen at the AEC Hackathon. We will do a little panel debate. It's a concept inspired by Michael Knowles of Daily Wired. But no worry, it's not right-wing conservative topics that we're going to discuss here today. We're just using the concept. Basically, the concept is yes or no. Everybody here has a yes or no sign, and I have some fast-paced questions I will ask you, which are a little bit controversial, and I ask everybody to take an opinion, and then we'll have a short discussion before we move to the next question. I'm sitting here with Mace Ali from NNA. Mace is the manager of engineering data, and NNE is on a mission in AEifying and digitalizing one of the biggest engineering consultants in the Danish construction industry. We have Jakob Gulbrandsen of Gulbrandsen Tech. Jakob is a BIM consultant working with clients in Copenhagen on the BIM implementation and BIM execution. And then we have Mikkel over here. Mikkel is the new head of ConTech Lab and has a long history of digitizing architecture companies, also in the in the Danish industry. And then there's myself, Ole Berard of Molio. And I'm on a mission pushing digitalization into the construction industry for almost 20 years now.
Hey.
But let's get started. I have 15 questions. Maybe it's okay if we don't do all of them. But I have 15 questions, 15 controversial questions. And the first question is BIM already dead, killed by AI, before it's ever delivered on its promises? We have Mikkel.
Oh, that's nice. We have
Mikkel has yes, Mace has no, and Jakob has no, and Mace says yes. I'll give Jakob the first shot.
If BIM is dead, then I'm out of a job. No, I think BIM is here to stay. I think it's. It would then just transform into something else, but BIM as we know it, I think, will stay a little longer.
What are you saying?
Well, working with BIM for 12 years, I don't think it's ever been alive.
That's a good point.
And I think if you take into consideration the lengths architects will go to not to work in BIM, but work around BIM and integrate Rhino and try to integrate SketchUp into the decision making. I think it's a nice tool, but it hasn't been implemented in the design chain.
Yeah. Want to add something, Mace?
What? Just try to read the question again.
Is BIM already dead? So it's AI. Basically, the question is
and
AI.
I think I said yes, not because, of course, it's not dead, and it is there to stay. Of course, we have to model and visualize our buildings, but I think around 7 or 6 years ago, a lot of companies believe that BIM is going to be used for almost everything, and all our data should be there, and I don't think that's the case, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
One thing that's the next question here. One thing I have been wondering a little bit about the last couple of weeks is if whether construction professionals, the contractors, will they be better off ditching BIM and letting AI go and going back to drawings and documents and letting AI do the work?
On.
You all agree?
Yes.
No. I will take the yes position.
Okay,
if you
okay.
take the
Okay. No, I don't think they should, and I think, and I feel very strongly about this. I think we shouldn't use AI to compensate for a bad value chain and bad data governance. I think we need to shift away from taking poorly governed BIM projects, printing out drawings with errors,
and handing it off to contractors and people on the building sites. I think we should do better, but it should be a system rather than fixing an old knallert, fixing an old moped, tuning an old moped. Yeah.
The reason I would say yes is that we are. I mean, contractors never get the value out of BIM because it always comes with a disclaimer. And what I'm actually seeing around, in the industry currently is actually contractors are very eager to build stuff on top of documents. So they are building what's it called tender engines. They are building risk analysis. They're not building coordination AIs yet. I think that's going to be the next thing. And I'm also seeing that it gets easier and easier for an AI to visualize a drawing. So I think from an industry perspective, I agree. From an ideal industry perspective, I agree with you, Mikkel. We shouldn't do that. But I see from a contractor perspective, it could be tempting to let AI do the information seeking and the coordination work.
But somebody has to feed that AI with new stuff. Like in order for it to be better, there's somebody who needs to feed it.
But I will agree in the sense of the BIM interface has failed, and I think the interface for people receiving that knowledge should change. So I partly agree. A drawing is not a bad interface, but the way it's set up now doesn't work.
Let's move on. I mean, what we have seen lately in the industry. So Claude Code, Lovable. We are seeing all these vibe coding apps, and vibe coding is getting much more accessible, much easier to do smart solutions. So one thing I've been wondering about is whether vibe coding will make Autodesk, Nemetschek, Graphisoft, all these big SaaS players, will they be irrelevant in 5 years? Because we see an ecosystem of much smaller, more customized software vendors. I give Jakob the first shot.
Like having worked at a company with a strict IT policy, the whole bottom-up implementation, I'm not going to see. Like that was in Danish terms a big company. In global terms, it was a tiny company, and having huge companies pan away from having an Autodesk solution, like one-stop shop, and then have like lots of smaller things. I'm not seeing that. So I think Nemetschek and Autodesk will have a place in the future. Have they lived up to the BIM promise? I don't think so.
Have they lived up to the AI promise? Not yet.
Not yet. No. Yeah.
What makes you say yes?
I mean, I agree there is a lot of friction, and I also agree that there's a lot of bottom-up innovation, and there's a huge pressure, innovation pressure in most companies. I think maybe the time frame of 5 years is I don't know if it's too short or too long. Who knows what will happen in a year? But I do think we'll see platforms, data platforms, structured data platforms as a service that you build on top of. So you don't have the data governance and the and security issues as much. But I think we'll see a shift in what the big players will do if they can do it in time. They have set up MCPs for a lot of their services at Autodesk. They have been just close to release as betas for quite a while now. Yeah.
You want to add, Mace?
No, I pretty much agree with Mikkel, but also believe that we are going to see a shift in Autodesk and all the construction solutions out there, because they have to adapt into the AI. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to survive.
I mean, you almost answered the next question. I'll ask it anyway. So, will construction companies, and here I'm thinking not the NNE kind of construction in the companies, but the smaller companies in the industry, will companies that don't have in-house developers or don't have AI engineers or AI builders or what we are calling that, if they don't have that, will they be out of business in 5 years? I think commit me. That's the easy one, but you get the chance first this time to argue why.
I mean, no, of course they'll not be out of business because they need like manpower to do stuff. We cannot just replace everything with AI. So I think the smaller construction company, we cannot do without them. But I also believe that they need to have the resources and the capabilities to understand the AI.
But do you see them develop their own? Do you see an architecture business of 20, 25 people or a contractor of 100 people? Do you see them develop their own solutions?
I think they need to, because there will be demands from the clients. Yeah.
Who did Jakob?
Yeah. Just seeing what have happened since, like, is it 4 years ago, the first ChatGPT?
3.5.
3.5. And what was the scope? 5 years?
Yeah. So it's a
and where we are now? So yeah. If you have not implemented at some level, you're just going to be run over.
I think there's a like a funny aspect of timing here, because over the last 3 months, coding has become accessible to everybody who has an idea and who knows where data exists and what you can sort of connect, what problem you want to solve. And I think anyway, a lot of the innovation that we see in many of the companies is bottom-up innovation, and there will be bottom-up innovators, young people graduating from different schools at small companies as well, and they will be as much able to do it, and maybe they will even have less friction in the small companies because they have they don't have an AI policy, they don't have cybersecurity. I mean, I actually think they will survive. I think a lot of the big companies may have a head start, but I think the timing and the friction in the building industry slows everything down anyway. So I think they will survive, and I think there will be more capable designers. Yeah.
What I think is interesting currently is seeing smaller companies actually start to develop their own software. Mikkel and I saw this guy who has got to develop an AI-based cost estimation software, basically for an infrastructure company with 200-300 employees. So not very big, a revenue of a couple of 100 million crowns. So a quite small contracting company that suddenly starts developing their own software.
We did a course a couple of weeks ago where this guy he took measurements of sewage pipes, and then he put it into Excel and worked on the data there and drew it in AutoCAD, blah blah. So he asked, why couldn't I make an app that could do this? And but why don't you try to ask Claude? And then he built an app that could take the points and make DXF drawings he could use for his digging machines. And he was just a guy basically coming off the street with no programming experience. It was really amazing to see how it enables everybody.
Yeah.
Next question. That's a good one for Mikkel especially. So, will AI make the architect redundant on standard building types within the next 5 years?
Sorry.
Will the architect be redundant on standard building types? So, what's it called? 2-3 blocks residential projects.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, let's start the control. I think that it's such a funny question, because when architects are talking to each other, we ask if the engineers will be replaced by AI. So I think everybody has an idea that it's all the other guys that will get replaced by AI. I think the problem with early stage or feasibility is that we don't make any money as architecture companies, at least in Denmark, from that type of work. So if it can be more efficient and more holistic, I think we would appreciate it. the grunt of the work architects do happens in the later stages anyway. So I see it as opportunity. I think things will shift in the industry, but everybody is going to be affected. The whole value chain. I think changes in the value chain, that's going to be the big change, not architects' work.
Why did you say yes?
Just to disagree, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Of course, I don't think AI is going to replace the architects completely, but I don't think the architects can survive without AI in the early stage, because I think AI is becoming their best friend at the moment.
Yeah.
If you compare like what you were able to do before AI, right?
I agree.
So, yeah.
So, Jakob, are you going to push a little bit more on the yes one than me? Who's folding a little bit over here?
I think there's going to be projects where people will seek out to replace architects with AI. Is it going to be pretty? I don't know. that is up to the viewer. But I think we're going to see projects where at least it's going to be minimal impact by an architect.
I think
it's already happening.
I think we've already seen that contractors and developers going together, cutting out the architect. And I think that what's it called? That will continue, and we'll see more of that, and people will try to use AI to replace.
Yeah. But I think the best people to create and utilize those tools will be the people with domain knowledge. And I think if you look at the building industry from the outside, I think a lot of the startups and even big companies that create like SpaceMaker or Forma look at the value chain and see the weakness at the feasibility study and the sort of the easy system to recreate in a software. But I don't think they've gained real traction yet, because it's just so much more complex than reducing it to volume studies and automation.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced yet.
So is AI regulation in construction, or I mean in general, so is AI regulation slowing the AI progress down in construction?
Repeat that.
Is AI regulation, like the EU AI Act, is that slowing progress down, especially in construction? Who didn't get? I think Jakob is a long time that he got the chance to start.
There is a little bit. I have not delved into the EU AI Act too much, so there's a little bit of a disclaimer there. But I think, besides that, some companies are limited to only you can only use Copilot or whatever. I don't see a limitation yet, but that could just be from my perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think yes, but I also believe it's a good thing because there's some ethical things that if we just use AI for everything, I mean, I don't think that's a good involvement. But yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think it does slow it down, but I agree that it should be there. And I also think it's an intelligent piece of legislation, to be honest. But I think that's the cross we have to bear in Europe, that we try to implement it with a high moral and ethical standards.
Yes.
But I think there's so much friction when it comes to AI implementation by decision makers, by IT departments, by the value chain, by contracts. So there's so many other places we can look to reduce the friction. And I think AI is ready. We just need to remove the friction from the industry. The technology is there. It's ready.
I think, and that is a very personal topic. I think there's a part of security, of cybersecurity, of IT security in that here that is also important, and that is because suddenly everybody is a hacker.
Yeah.
Everybody has his own server running on the company.
I mean, we are in Molio. We are providing software, and employees and collaborators and everybody is trying to hack us currently, just because they in the best meaning, just because they figured out how they can use Claude for. Just because they figured out how to use Claude for hacking. So I think we have a big problem currently that an average programmer, not even a programmer, an average IT interested guy suddenly has a tool that is able to find security vulnerabilities. That required being required being in a Russian hacker camp before. Next question. So is the construction industry simply too stupid to adopt AI before it's too late? Don't face. Okay. May says yes.
I say yes. Of course, we are not stupid, but they said no, so I had to say yes. But also, I also need to say that it's not because we don't want to adopt AI, it's not because we don't want to be digitalized, but it is because it is really, really complex. It's a really complex landscape. We are a lot of stakeholders on different levels that needs to collaborate. We don't really have a standard way on structuring our data, because most of it is not data, it's basically document-based files, right?
Manually.
Yeah. So I think that's why it's still really difficult. Yeah.
Make it, Jacob.
I think that AI is going to power the persons in a company that are capable of adopting it, and then the other persons who are not capable or do not want to, but have the knowledge needed to not be replaced by an AI, is going to be empowered by having that colleague that can help them out. So I think, no, I don't think the building industry is too stupid to adopt AI. I just think it will be on a much more granular level.
Yes.
Have a different take, Mikkel? Or?
Yeah, no, it's the same take. But I think a lot of the hacks we see at hackathons and a lot of the work that is done by computational design departments in the big companies is sort of addressing some sort of technical debt or organizational debt or missing data governance. I think that's a problem we've tried to fix in the industry for so long, and I only think the capabilities that come with AI shines a light on those problems that we haven't fixed.
Yeah.
Now the potential just keeps increasing and increasing, but we still haven't figured out that we shouldn't rely on paradigms for manual inputs in digital systems and breaking off data deliverances between participants in the value chain. So I think it's just sort of increases the technical depth at the moment. So we're not stupid, but we haven't changed in 20 years.
To work in the way
stubborn.
we used to.
Yeah.
Which actually leads us to my next question, and that is construction data so poor that we are training AIs to make the same mistakes as we always were making, just faster?
Let's fail fast.
It's a tricky question, actually.
May you explain why it's a tricky question?
Can you just repeat it, please?
Is construction data so poor that we are training AI to make the same mistakes faster?
Yes, I think so. Because I think it's two different things. Because one thing is, it's so poor. Yes, it is, because we don't really have data. I mean, it's yes. Question is, the answer is
Jacob.
Is the data so poor? I don't think, and I may be wrong here. At some point, we may be able to use AI to train AI in a sophisticated way at architecture companies. But I don't think we'll just pour all the knowledge we have of historical buildings into a soup and expect it to make new buildings for us. I think it'll be much more integrated in systems, using the new capabilities we have for creating software to create new systems using AI in much smaller bits that work specifically with parts of creating buildings. So I don't think we will look at like a data pool of old buildings. I think it will be much more sort of pinpoint AIs that we use systematically. I don't think so actually. I don't think that's the great value. Yeah.
No, if you take that perspective, and you might have a point. I think there's a big frustration in the construction industry currently that we don't really have AI software that supports the use cases that we are having, and I think that is very much a data problem. So the reason why software developers get so much out of AIs is because there is so much data. I mean, it has always, for the last 20 years, it has been the practice to put stuff on Reddit and Code Forum and Code Project, and I don't know what all these homepages are called, but there are so many forums where people put their good and bad code up that the AI was able to learn software development. Exactly. I'm still not able to generate an authentic Danish construction picture in Nano Banana because there's not enough data and because it doesn't understand local construction.
No, I don't know what comes first. That either we build a system that works and uses AI to structure our input and create new interfaces, or AI just becomes so good that you can put anything into it and a project will magically appear. We had a fun experience at the course the last time. We've always said that ChatGPT couldn't understand and create drawings, and suddenly it made a situation plan of a shopping center on top of a satellite image. And I don't know how it's possible. I mean,
but the problem then is that there's so much private data in construction. So I think
that's also
if we were able to build what's it called, train AI on all the big consultants and all the big architects' data, we will get much better AIs. Even though we still have the risk. Is as you're saying, is old data really good in designing new buildings because we're learning new stuff all the time.
Yeah. But I think that is sorry if I may interrupt. I think that is a very binary way to look at it. Either we have it or either we don't have it. I think there is a huge possibility, a huge probability in the middle where there is a lot of value to be gained. For instance, this past week, I took a BIM execution plan and asked Claude, how does this add up in terms of the rest of the tender documents? Is there anything missing? This is the key delivery for the data that we are going to use for environment calculations and so on, and was able to find all the holes in the entire BIM execution plan. So I think there is a huge possibility in the middle. Yep. I know we have this singularity out here, and we have no AI here, but I think there is a huge, and I think that is going to help us. That is why I said no. I think that is going to help us read the bad data that we have.
Yeah, and it's also not just in the. Sorry, it's not only in the middle, but it's also. It supports all our processes to get into a certain level. Yeah. So I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where the quality lies, and I don't think engineering companies, architects should invest in training, huge AIs where you can dump a lot of data. I think it's much wiser to invest in creating systems and raising the quality of your work. Yeah. Structuring inputs, lifting BIM execution plans up to a level where they can be machine read or compared to your paradigms or whatever. I mean, supporting processes like that, I think that's where the value is.
Which actually leads to the next question. Perfect
segue.
So is it the bad data governance? Is that the reason AI fails or under promises, fails or under delivers in construction? You need to turn around. Mace is the only one saying yes.
I believe that data governance is really, really important, and it's something that we don't really talk about that much in the construction industry. First of all, because we don't really have data. Again, it's a lot of information. We are a lot of stakeholders. So data, it's transition all the way through the whole life cycle. And it's really difficult when you take data and have to do analytics or reports to actually point back and say, who owns this data? Who's taking responsible of this? That's something that's really difficult right now. And I think ownership is really important if we need to build anything on top of that.
I allow one of you to answer.
I took the word last time, so.
I wholeheartedly agree with Mace. I think you're completely right. But I also think that we have reached, when it comes to data governance and expecting humans to input data in a structured way, I think we've reached the frontier of what we can expect. I don't think we can raise the quality of human inputs until we start creating systems that and different interfaces that make the input. So I agree, data governance is a barrier, but we can't raise the quality of our data governance with the old way of doing it by creating quality systems or teaching people to create good data. It has to be. It has to put into systems. I think
it has to be supported by tech. Definitely agree. Yes.
Exactly.
So let's move into cybersecurity. So is the construction industry sleepwalking into a cybersecurity catastrophe? Everybody says yes.
Jet fueled by AI.
Exactly.
I'm glad you had a whole session on this later.
What are you saying, Jakob?
Currently working on a project with where the contractor had what's called konkurs. Hvad hedder det på engelsk? What is it like?
Bankrupt.
Bankrupt, yeah. And having an issue reaching that data and seeing how much time it takes to recreate or find that, and how much money that cost. Having a project being held in an iron grip by, I don't know, a North Korean or Russian or whatever hacker group is going to be like catastrophic for that project. So I think, and we are using like the amount of persons that I've been added to Dalux projects or whatever, which is like funnybanana@gmail.com or whatever.
Yes,
like
exactly.
There is so.
Yeah, exactly. I've been there. Yeah, and I was
You've
just
also been Funny Banana at the email.
It was not Funny Banana, but maybe something else. But I've been on a few construction sites where I've actually been responsible for some collaboration platforms, and I must say, no one really talks about cybersecurity, and I saw a lot of different weird stuff on those platforms that definitely shouldn't have been there. So I don't think there's enough focus on that area.
Which brings me to the next question. So is the biggest threat sitting in our own supply chain and not in the hacker basement or the Russian hacker farms?
And the risk being like being hacked, for instance.
Yeah, I mean hacked for cybersecurity breach.
Yeah, okay.
So one thing is being hacked. One thing is industry espionage.
Okay.
Or something like that.
I don't know.
I hope he doesn't.
I was hoping you weren't agreeing, especially
Well, I
with
can
your
disagree.
reference.
I don't. I'm not even sure if I understand the question, to be honest.
No, man. I think the question is, what is the biggest cyber threat? Is that our supply chain might take our data that everybody has access to everything, might take the data is in an do you call it in the industrial espionage, the industrial spy thing, or is the threat, as Jakob was describing, taking data as hostage?
Well, totally not based on fact, but only like a gut feeling, unsupported by any like real knowledge. I think the biggest threat is something equivalent to a company going bankrupt and the rest of the team not having access to whatever CDE or I think that's probably the biggest threat. But I would say that's more of a governance problem than
But that's also
cybersecurity.
more supply. That's also more supply chain risk.
So
than,
that's, I would guess those are the biggest. I mean, threats that are linked to our processes and the supply chain. I think those are bigger. The others are kind of, I still pinpoint security threats that are of course relevant and may become even more relevant with the cyber warfare and whatnot. But I think that's probably the greatest. That's the money
why
maker, I would
hasn't
say.
the construction industry seen major hacker attacks yet? I mean, I know of a few smaller hacker attacks of construction companies, but why haven't we seen that what's it called? That Eastern European or Asian attacks that holds a major pile of data hostage?
Because they don't understand what we're doing.
They look into our systems and then they just see an IFC file that's totally sort of with wrong
They also
parameters
don't understand the
and missing
complexity.
stuff. Like, they already have enough problems. Let's move on to Novo
Takes them
Nordisk.
2 hours to open the BIM file.
exactly.
And I'm just like, oh god.
Don't kick a person that's lying down. Oh, it turns out they're not making any money. Let's find someone else to ransom.
What do you believe, Ole, could be the biggest threat? I mean, what's the
I
worst?
agree that it is in the supply chain. I actually believe we underestimating what already is happening. I think we're underestimating that people know much more about buildings and also the what's it called, the buildings that should be more secure. And I believe we will see some things in that industry spy thing. Where it might be Novo, where it might be military installation, where it might be forsyningsselskaber, or what's it called? Where people actually are already in control of physical drawings because they are a guy somewhere in the supply chain that had access to all of that stuff. But we are not able to relate that yet, or we haven't seen the consequences of that yet.
We're still living in a society that's based on trust and relative peace. So I think there are some weaknesses that can become really critical if that changes. That's a good point.
Yeah, sorry. So do we need more? Should we have more regulation? Should we have a more strict cyber regulation for the construction industry? What are you saying, Race? Yes, more regulation?
Based on what you're saying, I mean, yes.
With the scenario you just...
Why are you saying no?
I think we should just enforce the rules we have.
That's the easy way.
Let's try that. Yeah.
I mean, I would also say I would say yes if I go into that discussion. I'd say yes, also for the reason because the only times I've seen the construction industry actually act on anything, whether it is sustainability or digitalization or worker safety or anything, it has been through very strict
requirements,
very strict regulations.
Yeah,
that's true.
You're right. I changed my mind.
I mean, you're ruining the concept.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Which leads me to the no. Actually, we have a few minutes. Are there any questions from the audience? You're just putting the audience on the spot.
Well,
and please use a yes or no question.
Now you tell him.
No. Go ahead.
I know you're smart enough to.
Well, do you agree that there might be too much focus on AI right now? Right, that people are kind of getting distracted. It needs more time to mature. Things like that. So there's kind of like this, we got to use this ingredient, and no one knows what they're using it for.
No.
You can't change. Why are you saying yes?
I think it depends on if it's for a company or for the people in the company, because I think when it comes to the individual, it is a thing, and there's a big demand. But when it comes to the company, it's actually, I believe it's a bit difficult to find the right balance and how much to adapt and how much to try on, and it's really difficult to regulate. But the demand is coming from the individual, and then we're trying to find the right balance within the company, if that makes sense.
I think the group here lives in an AI bubble. We are talking about AI and AI and AI. I think there's a big part of the industry that doesn't talk enough about AI. And to me, it is a little bit like with the cell phone. If you didn't have a cell phone or if you didn't have a smartphone for the last 10 years, and somebody would hand you a smartphone now and says, work with it, you wouldn't have an idea what to do with it, because you didn't learn about Google Maps, and you didn't learn about what's it called, DoorDash and online banking and all that stuff. So I think I believe it's important, even more focus on AI and getting people on board, because I know the use cases are not completely clear yet, but you need to get on board to be ready when AI is ready.
Yeah, I feel so. I have mixed emotions about that, because I've just been, realizing all of my small ideas with Claude Code over the last month or so. So I'm not at a position where I can really sort of say, but I can answer with a cliche. I think we overestimate the short-term effects and have a too high focus on just implementing it, just using it. But I think if we don't start
you want to ask
getting acquainted with it, understanding especially how you can connect it to other data points, APIs, or at the hackathon we typically see a lot of the teams connecting to environmental data or data from municipalities, and you can already do so much with vibe coding at this point. So.
Final question.
Sorry, yeah, that was too long. But, thank you for the question.
I'll try the yes or no thing. Will the AI development, will it push a very old problem in the construction sector about data? That is, it's always been a problem to share data, but also to analyze data in a learning manner. Or will AI just, like you said, repeat the problems again very fast? Or will we actually be forced to look into these old problems about handling data and learning from our experiences?
It's such a hard question, like the other questions. It's such a dilemma, because either we fix the data so we can utilize AI better or get more value out of it, or we use AI to structure our historic data. And I guess both answers are relevant.
But haven't you been on a project where out of the blue, a person who is just like an Excel guru just comes on? And the amount of information that you can get out of the project with a person who knows that is just like, can you give me all of the different rooms that have X, Y, and C? And you can just get it like that. Right now we have a tool that can do that. Like, you can put bad data into it, and then you can ask, can we do this? Or do we have sufficient whatever? And then you can get an answer pretty quick, and you can say, okay, please, like, look at what other information you have. So I think, like, the whole like bad data discussion doesn't really concerns me that much, because now we have a slave that we can just use to understand all of that bad data.
It is already a great use case for AI. For instance, scanning your receipts when you go shopping. I will do it'll scanning your receipt when you go shopping, and using AI to structure the data and putting it into a system. It's a great use case for AI. Already exists in a lot of applications, and it could just as well exist in our design authoring tools, that you take bad input and structure it according to the paradigms and whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Please, quick answer or skip?
Skip. I agree.
I have a slightly different take also, maybe also reformulate your question in my head. But what I'm actually seeing in AI is finally the opportunity to learn across projects, because the industry has really struggled with learning across projects, and I believe AI can help us with that. Both in helping us with keeping track of the mistakes we are making, and maybe also helping us reaching the right conclusions from the mistakes we are making again and again. And if we also a little bit in control of the data that we're feeding into our AI, then we might finally build a learning system that helps us improve. I think we're out of time.
Last question.
Actually, I'm going to jump in because I can. Very quickly, so it's not an AI question, it's a data question, especially around governance. I've been reading a couple of articles. When we look at companies who already have installed some level of governance, let's not say if it's good or bad governance or not, but they have governance internally within their companies. Because the way that technology is now accelerating, because of the AI thing, do you think there will be a splitting of the industry of those who can accelerate and run ahead, and those who cannot and will fall behind and potentially go bust? Everyone is saying yes, apart from Ulla. So I will go to Ulla on why you think no first.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a completely no, but I stop at the I say no to the bust thing. I think there will be a splitting of the industry, and there will a certain group of companies that will not be eligible for a certain time of projects, and I actually see that as a good thing, because today you can start a little contractor company and you can start build high rises in Carlsbergbyen if you just get somebody who gets you who hires you for that, and that is maybe also part of some of the problems that we are having, that our system is in that way. So I definitely see the division. I also see that our industry is so vast, that we're building so much stuff, and that we're building so much stuff on different levels, that I think in general terms there also will be room for the AI insufficient people. They will just build much more simple stuff, and then there will be an AI elite that will build the more complex and the more bigger stuff.
So, yeah, I mean, who has good governance? If you build a plane, you need to have good governance. If you work with pharmaceuticals, you have to have good governance. If you do software development, you have to have good governance. If you don't, you die. But we haven't died yet from having bad governance in the building industry. So let's imagine that we can.
Because there's always.
Everybody's pretty much dying.
There's always a developer that will hire you for building.
But it's a really bad business. I mean.
That will hire you for building what's it called, 500 Bolia 500 residential flats.
Yeah, which leads me to so who needs good governance? If you work with industrialized construction, you need good governance, and you need design processes that match your fabrication processes. So they need good governance. So why have they died? They have died for instance because they don't have the flexibility to adapt to certain places or design criteria. If they have too much flexibility, they die. If they have too little flexibility, they won't get bored. So imagine what you could do if you had 100% AI-assisted data governance, and if you could build what systems could you build on top of that? How much more sophisticated system could you build on top of that? I think it may enable those that look at the complete value chain to build something that can challenge the way with the traditional value chain of today with segments. That could be a consequence of AI-assisted buildings or governance or data structure.
Yeah, you could also create some pretty good benchmarking. So, but yeah.
Some final words on the question or on something else?
I think no.
No, so just continue.
No, just final comment from me. I think it's going to take time to have good structured data and governance, because again, it is really complex. But I believe that we can reach that point in the future, hopefully the nearest future with the help of AI. So let's see.
Yeah. I think the ease of use is so much different. Like imagine first time you opened Revit. That was just like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like,
And it only gets worse from that. It's downhill from there.
1 million buttons, and AI is just like it's just a prompt. You just write whatever you think. So you meet a lot of people all the time when you are on site that says, I cannot work with. We use Dalux a lot here in Denmark. Like, I cannot understand it. Like, you can scroll Facebook. Like, of course you can use Dalux. And the same thing with AI. Like, I cannot do it. Okay, you cannot type. Like, please, come on. Like, you have to be able to reason and type. That is what you'll be able to do. So, yes, if you completely ditch it, I think you will be left out. But I think the amount of companies that is going to be left out is going to be, I don't know how many, but I believe it's going to be not that many.
Final or maybe also overall comment, Mikkel?
I just thought I had the really nice closing remark in my last remark.
Okay. No more closing. No more closing.
No, that's the closing remark. I think you're right. The biggest sort of short-term change will be the interface will change, and design authoring will be more about domain knowledge. And I mean, going back to the arts of cultural heritage, empathy. I hope that'll be the sort of the entry ticket for design authoring, and not understanding the finer nuances of shared parameters and building families in Revit. That would be a nice start, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
likewise.
Thanks, everybody, for listening.